Alright, so we'll continue on with this. And I think the next thing I gotta do here is weld up the bottom underneath there. I'm not looking forward to that. Just so you know, when you weld upward, a lot of times it's harder to weld that way. That's why a lot of times it's a good idea to have a Karmann or rotisserie, because it's easier to flip it over and then you can weld downward. You can do a little bit nicer work that way. But we don't always have that. So the other thing you can do too is, I was just watching Fitzy's metalwork. It's funny, he does a lot of stuff the same way. I guess over the years I learned other ways to do it, and then I got, better at doing stuff, and you started doing more butt welding as years go on. But he does a lot of stuff very similar to the way I do it. And even I didn't even know this until he was talking about welding and gas. But typically you're supposed to have your gas at 15, and both of us weld at 12. So just so you don't waste gas, you can weld at 12 if you get pretty good at it. You don't need it all the way to 15. But not many people do that. If you go to the welding supply and other places, they all tell you 15, 15, 15 all the time. But I've been doing it at 12. My other machine doesn't even have a gauge. It probably only puts out 12, because it puts out, I can just tell by the amount of gas coming out of it, it's not as much as this thing is at 15. So what you can do sometimes is crank the gas up a little bit to push gas upward, because it wants to fall down, so that it still wants to weld a little bit easier. Still not easy, especially trying to butt weld upside down. It's not going to be fun. So I'll probably do that portion off camera, and I'll bring you guys back in, and then we'll continue on with this. Now I think I got an idea. I'm thinking I can get my slide hammer hook on here. Let's see if that works to bring that hood over. See if I can get a little better leverage this way. Wasn't having that much left before. That seemed like it moved. If it went too much, that's actually good. Yeah. Moved this thing, and I didn't want to move that. Anyway, I'll play with that a little bit more. I just put a filler piece in there. The thing's going to drive me nuts. So I'll get that definitely to line up better. It is too wide right here. It goes over here. Actually pulled it in, looked like, but it pulled in this part. It's not moving where I want it to, which is not fun. Well, maybe when I push that in and weld the bottom in, it'll probably kind of curl upward, take some of the stress out of it. One of the things I wanted to tell you guys, I forgot just till this now, but somebody mentioned I was using a Cleco clamp. I don't use these a lot because they're a pain in the butt, or like the typical way you use these. The typical way you use these is you drill a hole, and you have lap metal, and you can use these to hold it in place. It's really, to me, it's I could use a sheet metal screw and do the same thing in half the amount of time, because I don't have to drill a hole and then get these things out and put it in the hole and line it back up and put them on there. I can just put a sheet metal screw through 2 layers and it'll hold it just fine. You don't really need these very often. So I do have them for this reason right here. You see this little tiny washer I've got right here? This is a number 3 washer. Okay, and I'll show you what I do with it. And then, forgot to mention this in the last video, I just had too much video going on, so just barely was able to do it. So I put this on here like this, and I put the number 3 washer on. Wish they made them in, I haven't been able to find them in fender washers. It would be really cool. Fender washer is a larger washer like the one above. But throw it in your butt weld, put the washer on the other end, put the little washer on, which normally goes right on. Not being nice. There it is. Which goes on like that. And then that will hold those two layers together, and it's spring loaded. You can kind of move it around and get it to hold a nice butt. So sometimes these Cleco clamps being used this way can be really handy to use. But if you use them the way that they're designed, which is drill a hole, put it in there, I mean, sheet metal screw does the same thing. So anyway, that's what I use those for. If you saw those in the last video, I didn't get a chance to mention it to you. We'll bring you guys back in a minute. Alright, so you guys with the Harbor Freight welder, that's where my settings were. I was actually able to do it at 12, going upward. You gotta, you know, it's a little raggedy on the bead. I mean, I didn't, listen, I know, yeah, you know, you should just do a spot weld and then cool it off and all that. I don't have the patience for that. So I always end up warping it a little bit. But if you finish it, fill it, it's all the same, good enough. So now what I gotta do, I gotta clamp and fill inside here. Let's see if I can get a camera angle in here, huh? That'd be fun. Or clamp and weld that along the, I'm just gonna weld along the bottom edge, just spot weld it right every ½ inch on center. And then I made up drilling a few and putting some up above that, just to strengthen it up. So I'll have like some along the bottom edge on here, and then some up about right here. This panel is not exactly the same as the original one that I took off, because it's a little bit different. That's why we're having a little bit of trouble, you know, maybe different press or whatever, because it's, the bends are in a little bit different place, and if I put them in exactly the same place, the hood wouldn't fit. So it's definitely a little bit different. So anyway, that's why we're having a little bit of difficulty, but that's fine. We'll get it in one at a time. Alright, so what I got now is I'm just going to have this tie strap on here while I'm doing this little piece here, so that it doesn't get welded to where it wants to fall that way. So I'll do a little bit of tapping on it. Put it in there like that. When I tack it, I forgot to clean the black part, so I'm going to tack it on the other side, pound it down, clean that, and then weld that sucker in. Alright, so that's all ready for filler. I actually just did little tacks along here on the very edge versus drilling holes. It's a little faster. And then I'll just fill that in and look great. Won't even hardly notice it's on the inner panel. So it's not like you're gonna, if you open up your hood and show it, then you just spend a little more time and finish. It doesn't matter. It doesn't take that much longer. It's just little tricks like that for you guys trying to do your own stuff. And I got my welds nice and moundy out here. And guess what? I'm going to cover it with that piece. And I'm going to leave it just like that. Especially for the haters. Because who cares? It's underneath the vent. Cover that up in a minute. Once I get this painted. Where there are runs, there will not be rust. Yeah, let's make a few runs. Fatties. Nice. Alright, I can't find my patch. If you guys happen to see it anywhere, maybe you can point it out to me, right? My little patch section for the vent. While I'm looking for that, I got a piece of flat metal and then just kind of bent it a little bit. And I'm just going to put it in place here. Let's see if I can get this. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and grind this down. Take a look at it. Alright, so unfortunately I don't think I got the footage of this. My camera I noticed was twisted there, different directions, shooting something else, so who knows how much of it I got. But what I did is I clamped it in the middle and then worked my way outward and then hammered it into place and just did it that way. And it's a little bit low, but that's fine. I'm just going to fill it in. You know, a little bit of filler ain't going to hurt anything. It'll still last just as long as if you didn't use filler. It's the same difference. If it's done right, it'll last pretty much the life of whatever you're doing. So, we got this ready. And guess what I found under my welding glove? Did it get lost again? This piece. A little bastard. So, it goes on there somewhere. Get that on there. So I get some fresh air fixed. That fixed up. And I'll just grind this up, clean it up, put it in there. Alright, so what we got here, so I've tacked it into place. Took two of us to get this thing to be where I think it's going to go. And so what we're going to do is going to cut it and butt it. So we're going to cut a section through 2 layers and butt them together and then drop it down in. You guys have seen me do small patches this way. The only way I can see to do this big fender, if you tried to screw it into place with all this compound bends and everything, it's just gonna move. By the time you get your screw in there, it's gonna move. So I just tacked it like right around the edges, and then now what we're gonna do is go ahead and cut through 2 layers, like I said, and butt it into place. So we'll start doing that right up here. I really want to get this corner in, and then I gotta work my way along the top, and then I gotta do this edge not too far in, because I've got to bend this fender up and then pull out my double layers. So it's gonna be a little tricky. So I'll let you guys check it out from the sideline here, and we'll get on it. All right, let's take a look at the progress here. So it's working. If you can see, this is going outward. That's because this fender is loose. So I am going to have to, once I get the whole thing in, then I'll have to work that. And of course, this has got filler in it, so that's not helping much. So, you know, that was all wrinkly and stuff. So if you see, this is cut in the butt all the way along here, and I've been peeling out the layers underneath. Let's see if I got them all. I think I did. Yeah, they're all here. I got them all out. And then you can see here, what I'm going to do is finish cutting this all the way down. So I'm going to have to cut these off right here again, these little pieces right here, and then lap this down as tight as I can, and then cut through 2 layers, all right? And then just work my way all the way down and get that all the way out, because I can't get these layers out unless, you know, so I might end up with a little bit extra gap here where I've got to fill it in with some weld. You notice these are pretty wide, so, you know, but it's okay. You can, it's easier, at least, you know, if you have a wider gap in your weld, then you're not going to have penetration all the way through. So that's a lot of people, they butt things too tight and they don't get their welder hot enough and it doesn't really get all the way through. So we don't have to worry about that. So anyway, we'll continue on with this again a little bit later, and I'll bring you guys back in. We'll watch them in high speed again and get through those things, but I just wanted to explain this to you so you know what's going on in the video, so you can kind of watch it and learn a little bit of stuff. This is a tricky one. This is probably, as like I said, one of these Ghia fenders is one of the highest level, you know, body work you can do. So anyway, looks like we got it nailed though. We'll bring you back in later and you'll see the aftermath of who knows what happens. There'll be something to fix. Not that much. We got the lines all right. The line down here is right. The edge is right. The corner looks like it's going to drop right in perfect. So we're good to go. Talk to you next time. All right. So what I need to do now is I'm going to use something and hold this into position. If you can see, the lines line up, and then tack it right here. Tack it in the corner. You know, so there's a little bit of a gap, and that's okay. With the Harbor Freight welder, you know, you can easily fill that in. It just takes a little bit of time. With a 220 welder, it'd be really hard to do. So anyway, I'll put a tack on there, and then what I'm going to do is continue to cut through 2 layers all the way down the fender after I've clamped it. So I'm going to clamp the bottom. Once I've tacked this, I'm going to clamp the bottom, and then we'll see. I'll show you in a second. It's really hard to weld where they got lead, so there's some lead filler in there where it's one of the factory seams. So I'll have to heat that up with a torch. I got it to hold for now. That's all I needed to do. So it looks terrible, but that's the reason why. There's lead all over there. So I can heat that up with a propane torch and then kind of scrape, use wire brush and get all the lead off, and then clean it, and then before I can finish butt welding that. But I'm not trying to finish that right now. So what I'm going to do now is continue. Let's clamp it. So I'm going to continue to cut. So I've got that clamp down there so it's nice and tight. I don't want to weld anything. I'm just going to cut through 2 layers all the way down. Okay, cut through all 2 layers all the way down, and then I'll start welding it. If you notice, it's a little tiny bit off, and that's okay. The main part to line up is this part. We want this to be butted perfect, and then the rest of it we can fake it in so that everything's round, so there's not really any way to go wrong. Round you can always fix. So, but it does make it more, you know, you can't just fit this thing on here and think, oh yeah, I'm going to fit everything first and then try to put it on. It's just not going to work that way. So I'm going to cut through 2 layers. I'll bring it back in. You guys can check that out in this high speed. All right, voila. New French speakers. There it is. So all I gotta do now is tack it in, just like I did everywhere. Then I'll have to probably reset this part. Once I get this, see, I already knew that that was gonna affect that. So I may be able to just straighten that with hammer dolly, I'm not sure. The worst scenario is I could cut this back off and then reset it or weld it and I'm done. Either way, it's a great way to throw a skin on this. It would have been really hard for me to try and wrap it around the corner, so that's why I chose to do it this way. So trying to wrap it around the corner and trying to hook it on there and then trying to weld over here would have probably been a nightmare. I mean, if you had to do it, it could be done. I just would, since we had a good edge here, and this gap is actually pretty good once the door's tightened and pulled forward a little bit more. So a little loose in the back, a little tight back here. Move that forward, it's in the right place. So just tack that baby in and then start welding it all up. I'll tack this in first, I'll get all this in, and then I'll straighten that if I can, and then I'll start welding it all in. And of course, you know me, I'm not patient enough to sit there and wait and do 2 or 3 spot welds and not warp it. I'll probably warp it a little bit, but this welder doesn't warp it that bad. It's actually pretty good. It doesn't get a real hot weld like the 220 welder does. It's actually, you can control it pretty well and, you know, do it. This is the Harbor Freight titanium. So my old 220 welder, I would have to tack it and cool it, tack it and cool it, and I don't have the patience for that, you know. So if you guys do, that's all you, man. But I'm just showing you the technique. You do whatever you want with it. If you want to do it like really perfect and sit there and be really patient, more to you, because that is definitely not going to be me. Alright, so I'm welding up some of my little holes. It dipped just a little bit, that's okay. It's a little bit warped. I already knew I was going to do that. And then this Bandini mountain right there, how about that one? That's from there was a big hole there, and there was some of that, whatever it's called, lead filler in there and stuff. So I cleaned it out as best I could and still made a mess. That's okay, that's what grinders are for. We'll clean all this up, get it all ready. I'll take a look at it in a second. So I wonder what kind of fillerage is on here. Let's take it off and see. I don't know what's on there. Looks like it might be something. Alright, let's take a look here. So I just put a little filler on here while I was waiting for my batteries to charge up to finish this up. So this is all touched up, kind of. It's a little bit low. Got a little bit of pounding to do here. Not much. It's really pretty straight. Mostly just fill that. There's an edge here. There's a little dent in this thing right there. There was a dent that was in the panel ahead of time. It's a little bit low right here, but again, once you get done filling it, should look just fine. And got a little grinding to do on that spot. I tried to fill in I fixed most of that. It just ground right off. Looked good. Except there was one little hole there. Actually, didn't really need to worry about it, but it kind of welded nasty on that one too. So anyway, it'll be fine. The welds are on there good. That's the most important thing. They're very strong. Fender's like one piece. We'll do a little bit of sanding, bring you back in, take a look at it. Had to come out here, get some more filler. Yeah, I got some more over here. Just in case you want to know where to go. Alright guys, looks like I just got a little bit more to do here. I sand out my lines by hand. So I sanded this with 36 or 36 grit, that's what this is. And then I go over it with 80. Sometimes I finish it with 150. And then just got a couple more dings here, if you see those three. And that's AG47, so you can go right over the paint as long as it's sanded good. I just sanded this spot down here and put a thin coat of filler over that. Get that looking good. Sand up my lines again. Throw a little bit of, there's a low right in here, kind of falling in. I'll probably just do a little bit more filler as you fill in these little dings here. See if I can get a coat primer on this thing real quick. We'll take a look at it. Alright, talk to you guys a little bit later. We're moving on. This fender's looking like it was never repaired. Right, a little further along here, just got some filler on those spots. Gonna do a quick sand on those, and then everything else, just catch it after glazing. For glazing, there's really not that much. There's a few dents and dings and stuff, and it's just too hard to feel them all. It's easier to catch it with guide coat on there and then just sand it once and then find all the low spots and fill them. Probably have to do it twice because this thing's pretty dented up. It's not a new panel, that's for sure. And some of the new ones are even worse. I don't know about these, but I saw them online. It was in Europe. They want 1,800 euros for one fender. Wow. Good luck with that. All right, let's take a look here. Had some really bad contaminated air just now, so I got a whole bunch of little water spots and stuff in it. Yeah, it was doing some weird stuff, but it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to, it's just primer, so all the sanding I had to do on this, so it got the compressor hot, and of course got water in the line. It's alright anyway, but you can see, so it got some runs in it and stuff, some little water spots, and some things I was pushing out like fish eyes from the water. So anyway, but you can see it's pretty darn straight, not too bad. This is just first, this is just a run through, very quick sand of the bottom. I didn't sit here and get fussy about it. I didn't sit there and everything was done with the DA, no hand work. All the hand work could be done from here, and this could look 100%. So even the line's not too bad. I could just fight with that little spot right there, but I mean, it's not too bad really. Pretty good. I wasn't even trying, didn't even play with it. So there you go, there's the inner fender. Just go through and block sand, prime, and do a little bit more glazing, and then this could get a finger of seam sealer. That's what I was gonna do, but I gotta wait for the primer to dry, so we'll leave that for future reference. There we go. But all the way down, nice and clean. Put it right through there, over there. Can't see it. Block sand, prime again, guide coat, paint it. You wouldn't even never know this is a grafted fender. There's no way. Up in here, look at that, where I lapped it, and just clean that up with a filler if I wanted to, or just throw undercoating right over that. I don't know, or throw a little bit of paint on there first and then undercoat it to match the rest of that garbage that's on there. Yep. Alright, looking good. That's it for the fender. We'll get on with the other parts on the next video, so stick around, come back for that. I went ahead and just did this door too. I pushed out the dent, so I just ground it down and put a little filler on it. It looks pretty good. It'll straighten out, just so, like I said, a little bit of block sanding, guide coat, and maybe some glazing here and there, a few places, especially up here. I know I didn't get that real smooth. That could use a definite glazing coat, and there's a lot of little dings and stuff everywhere, so all that has to be done. Alright, I'll talk to you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments and let you know what you think of the giant lap spot I put in there. A giant butt weld I did. That was a huge butt weld.